Good morning, Gasaholics. I'm Hot Rod Bob, and you've got Gas, the morning edition, coming to you on a Thursday before we go racing at Irwindale Drag Strip, your place to race in Southern California. How are you doing today? Hey, I get a lot of questions about how'd you get involved in drag racing? What do you like about drag racing? Don't you think Top Fuel and funny cars great? And all sorts of questions. But you know what? It's the grassroots drag racing that got me interested. It's the door slammers that have always held my attention. I don't go out to a national event for the Top Fuel and the funny car. Oh yeah, they're great. They run 300 miles an hour. Yeah, it's fun to watch them pop the chutes. It's noisy, it's thunderous, it has gut-wrenching vibrations through the stands. It's really good. But that's not why I go to drag racing, and it's not how I got involved. The people that influenced me in drag racing were people like Ronnie Socks and Martin, the Socks and Martin team, Dandy Dick Landy, a local guy from San Fernando area. Those are the guys that got me involved. Grumpy Bill Jenkins, and so forth. They drove cars I could identify with. Now, Pro Stock is no longer something I can identify with. Those are silhouette cars. You might as well call them NASCARs because they really only somewhat resemble what they originally were. Good morning, Edgar and John. How are you? And Jay Black. But the days when you could see a car on the drag strip painted meticulously, exciting looking, and something you could relate to on the street. Landy driving his Dodges, a whole series of them, whether they were the altered wheelbase or the stock eliminator cars, or the super stock, especially the original super stock and pro stock. Those were the cars that I recognized. Those are the cars you could duplicate almost on the street. Those were the cars that influenced hundreds of people in my age group. And for some reason, those are the cars that no one seems to recognize or know today. And one of those reasons, I think, and again, this is my personal opinion, is that the cars of today that race are not the cars we see. How many stock or super stockers do you see made out of a Honda or a Toyota? You don't. NHRA relegated them to a compact competition. Why? Because they don't hold a chance against a rear-wheel drive car? Who cares? Let them try. Give them the opportunity. They can run in the lower stocker classes, but if you want to get people involved in drag racing, you need to bring in the cars they can recognize. Hi, Martin Chesworth, all the way from Great Britain. Hope you're having a great day. There's where we're missing it. Now, a couple of weeks ago at Irwindale, we had a tuner event. Man, the place was jam-packed. Over 700 cars at Irwindale. They were all recognizable. They were all customized. They were all modified. Well, some of them were stock. But they were cars that the people of today can recognize. I still recognize the old Barracudas and the Dodge Chargers and the Coronets and the Roadrunners and the GTOs, but those cars are foreign to the kids that are buying foreign cars. So how do you get them involved in drag racing? How do you get them off the street and onto the track? Well, you don't make special classes for them. That just alienates them even more. You mix them in with everybody else. Hot rodding is hot rodding. It doesn't matter what the brand vehicle you have or where it came from. Drag racing is drag racing. Again, it doesn't matter what brand you choose to drive. It's drag racing. Make it so that the local and the average person can assimilate and feel comfortable watching it. When I started going to drag races, the stands would fill up for the door slammers. They stayed for the Top Fuel, but they were full for the door slammer cars, the cars they could recognize. Those are the cars that got me interested in drag racing. It wasn't the Top Fuel cars, although, those twin-engine cars were kind of cool back in the early days. But the cars that I understood were the stockers. Stock Eliminator, Super Stock, Pro Stock, even the early altered wheelbase funny cars. You could recognize them as to what they really were. It didn't take stickers to tell you it was a Toyota or a Camry or a Camaro or a Mustang. You knew what it was. And then the team drivers, well, they were sponsored by the factories in many cases. Maybe not full sponsorship, but enough that you knew Grumpy Jenkins was driving Chevrolets. Sox and Martin were driving Mopars. They always drove Mopars. Even Richard Petty, the king of NASCAR, drove a Barracuda in drag racing. Now, he wasn't real successful, and it really was catastrophe that got him out of it finally. John Gomes is saying the modified production and gassers for him. Yeah, the first cars that I really recognized and loved were the gassers, because the bodies were basically stock. Stone, Woods, and Cook. Man, I built that model because of what I saw in the magazines. The cars I could recognize. Yeah, they were modified. Front ends were up in the air. They had big slicks. Rear wheel wells were radiused out so they could clear them. But you knew what the car was. Today, a Pro Mod. It's a funny car with another name. It got doors that open. Whoopsie. It's a car that's still, in many cases, unrecognizable for what it was. Big, huge fenders that somewhat replicate what the real car was. Scoops. Okay. Some of them are okay, but when the scoop is taller than the roof of the car, we got a problem here, Bunky. So what cars do I assimilate with? Well, the stock Eliminator classes. Even some of the super gas cars. Super street cars. These are cars that I can recognize from the street. But the problem still remains, we're losing people at drag racing. Now, with every sport, there's some politics involved. You got rid of the cigarette sponsors because, oh, you can't smoke. We got rid of the beer sponsors because, oh, you can't drink. They're still selling beer, guys. They sell beer everywhere. Why did NHRA stop the alcohol advertising? Political pressure. Take the politics out of the sports, please. Take it out of football. Take it out of basketball. Take it out of baseball. Take it out of drag racing and stock car racing and all forms of sports. Politics doesn't belong there. We got enough politics within the sport. To bring external politics in is just ridiculous. But get it back to cars that we can notice. Hi, Ricky. How you doing in Prescott? Cars, it doesn't matter, again, what brand it is. It doesn't matter what shore it comes across or from. It doesn't matter where it was originally made. It matters as to who is the audience. Who do you want to bring into drag racing? We want to bring in the younger kids. We want to bring in the younger adults. Those people do not recognize the 1940 Willys. Sorry, guys. They don't recognize a 65 Bel Air or 65 Belvedere or a 65 Barracuda. They recognize Hondas, Toyotas. They recognize front-wheel drive cars. Let them run. Let them classify based on their performance capabilities, just like the other classes did. Get them in. Get the people into drag racing. Top Fuel is too limited. Funny Cars is too limited, too expensive, too corporate. Bring back the sportsmen. Bring back the people like me that sometimes you drove your car to the track. I raced the 1954 Merc. I drove it to the track. I raced my Beetle. I drove it to the track. I raced my Datsun. I drove it to the track. I drove it home. Did I ever break a car? Yeah. Did it ever leave me stranded? Well, that's what I had AAA for. But I never broke to the point that I had to be towed out of a drag race or an autocross or any other type of competition I was involved with. but bring it back so it's identifiable. I loved drag racing as a spectator. I was okay with it as a racer. I've done it. I've driven a dragster. Jack Beckman had me behind the wheel of a super cop car. That was fun. Yeah, and I actually drove it down the track. I didn't just sit there. If you want to just sit there, well, Ron Johnson put me in Tommy Ivo's car. Running. Oh, that was fun. Ah, the fun I had. But drag racing, it's where the youth learned about racing here on the West Coast. Now in the South, they were more into circle track and NASCAR and stock cars. I got involved with the drag racing. I then got involved with circle track. I got involved with road racing. I got involved in autocrossing. I got involved in go-karting. I've gotten involved in many forms of competition, including slot cars, as you know. But my favorite is still the industry I work in today, drag racing. Let's get the people back. Let's get the cars they recognize back on track. Let's make it a fun hobby and sport that everyone from all walks of life can get involved with. I'm Hot Rod Bob. You've got GAAS, the morning edition. Let's go drag racing. I'm going to be at Irwindale tonight. GAAS, the Great American Auto Scene, brought to you by Craig Heidenthal and Service Tech Equipment. Get all the equipment you need for the shop you've got, whether it's your home shop or a commercial workshop. They got it. Rebecca Nunes, how you doing? John Gomes, yeah. You and I met on the streets of Los Angeles. You guys have a great day. I'm Hot Rod Bob, and you've got gas.